Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football.
Hey Seahawks fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with Keith Myers, co-host Keith Myers. After a win on the road, the Seahawks defeat the Rams in regulation, nonetheless, and go to 7-5 on a
Were you
Geno
surprised?
Smith
Surprised it was regulation?
Game-winning drive that we've been waiting for with Geno Smith to take this thing 27-23. Hey, Keith, how you doing, man?
Best drive of the game, in my opinion. Just in control. I've been waiting for that. I've needed to see it because he's had opportunities to win game-winning drives during his time in Seattle and hadn't succeeded. So we've been kind of needing it to happen. It finally happened, and now people like me can shut up about it. It was. I'm glad to see them win. They needed this win, but against the LA's JV team, this should have been so much easier than this. It shouldn't have taken a game-winning drive at the end of the game by Geno Smith to win this. And overall, it's a very disappointing game, but a win, and we'll take the win.
Yeah, anytime you win in the NFL on the road against a division opponent, I'll take it. You know, it's these things aren't easy. It's hard, and the Rams have a lot of pride, even though they had many of their star players out of this game, out for the season essentially. They came to play and they played well. I thought, going in, we should have been double-digit winners in this game.
Oh yeah. And
when the Rams opened up with an 8-yard carry to Cam Akers and then followed that up with another 8-yard carry, and then they marched down the field, I just thought, what is going on with this defense? And it happened again. Finally, Geno was able to connect with Tyler Lockett, score a touchdown, and then I thought, if the last drive was Geno's best drive, his second best drive was clearly that 91-yard drive that ended with that Noah Fant touchdown. Mm-hmm. I thought Geno showed extreme patience there at the end to throw that touchdown. So that was a great touchdown. And that was in the first half. And then Woolen had the interception, there in the second quarter as well. I thought, it's hard to throw to that guy's side of the field and expect anything different at this point. 6th interception of the year for Tariq Woolen.
Leads the NFL. That's also a franchise record for rookie players, set by Sean Springs, I believe. What was the previous guy to hold that record?
Yeah.
So
interesting. What do you think about the Jordan Brooks sack? Like, were you surprised at all? That's his first sack, even like almost first blitz that I've even noticed him being on this year.
It wasn't. I'm not surprised that it's his first sack, simply because they don't bring him. He is dropped back. He roams the middle of the field in a kind of a centralized zone. That's his job. They don't bring him. When they bring extra players, it's sometimes a safety. It's sometimes a corner, sometimes it's Barton, but it's never, or sometimes it's both outside linebackers instead of just one. But it's never Brooks. And so when they finally brought him, the Rams just didn't expect it. I mean, they had no one.
It kind of reminded me of the way they used to play Bobby Wagner. To be completely honest, Bobby he would always have 3 or 4 sacks coming up the middle on a stunt. During the season. That was the first time I've seen Brooks do it. I may have missed it, and he just got picked up, by a block earlier in the season. But it was nice to see. I thought effective and could be duplicated and effective down the road. Keith, I was really disappointed in the way that they defended the run today. I thought the Rams just really didn't have anybody. They didn't have a game. Their quarterback, has a difficult time throwing the ball down the field, and he's efficient, short yardage, but we knew that the game plan should have been to shut them down going in against the run, and they just weren't able to do it. And they just looked sloppy again, out of position, looked like they were taken up in two gaps again, and just kind of being passive and not being aggressive.
That's the part that bugged me is if you watch the defensive linemen, they were back to two gapping, which is what they were doing at the beginning of the season. It didn't work, and they switched out of it and went to a one gap system, and that worked really well. But why are they back to two gapping when you know it doesn't work and you don't have the personnel to do it right? That was frustrating. And then watching Bruce Irvin fail to set the edge over and over again.
Yes.
That's why he's on the Seahawks roster, is because of his ability to defend the run as an outside linebacker.
He just kept getting sucked in. And I was just like, there's nobody outside of you, dude. You can't get sucked in. You've got to stay
You've got to do your job.
Yeah. Anyway, it was crazy.
Yeah, it just kept happening. One thing that Sean McVay has Pete Carroll's number. He really does. In the same way that Pete Carroll has
the coach for the 49ers.
Yeah, has the 49ers number, and Shanahan's got Sean McVay's number. It's this weird, like, I don't know.
And they all play similar schemes, both on offense and defense.
Yeah, they do. And that might be part of it, but it's Sean McVay plays Pete Carroll really well. His teams always kind of know what Seattle's going to do beforehand, and Seattle just doesn't seem to have the right predictions in place. So that's part of it. I think is just a coaching thing. Is that Sean McVay just knows how to beat Pete Carroll, and the talent on the Seahawks won out, but yeah, it should not have been that hard. Like I said, we're playing a JV team. I mean, no Matthew Stafford, no Cooper Kupp, no Aaron Donald, no Robinson.
Iteration of their offensive line in 12 games.
Yeah, no Ashawn Robinson at the middle.
No quarterback.
Yeah. It's like you have this situation where it's like all these star players are out. Yeah, they still have Bobby Wagner, who had a great game for them. They still had Jalen Ramsey, who had a pretty dang good game for them as well. But they're missing so many key pieces of that team. A relatively healthy Seattle team should have just been able to walk all over them.
Yeah, and part of that was getting to Geno Smith, disrupting timing, pushing him around a little bit with our offensive line, and then versus the run, they did really well. That was frustrating for me. I thought we should have had more success.
Well, Ken Walker got hurt early, and he's kind of the game plan in this game.
And I thought he was going to have a great game and started out really good. 3 carries, 36 yards, 12 yards per carry, and then went out with that ankle, and that was it. Hope he's doing good, and it was precautionary. We need him down the stretch for sure. DJ Dallas looked like he just tweaked something. He came back. He kind of worked through it after getting taped up at halftime.
We'll see what he feels like tomorrow. This is one of those, on game day, you get a little banged up like that. You can just adrenaline your way through it. But the next day when it swells up and feels bad, that's when,
hopefully 2-3 days will be good.
You see people come back and play and then find out the injury is worse than you thought. So there's that.
Yeah. So what do you expect? We're going to go out on the free agent waiver wire and see what we can find in the running back world out there off the street.
I don't know. There's not much out there. And they might bring up Bo Melton, the wide receiver they drafted, who used to be a running back, and give him some carries, especially as a receiver out of the backfield. Who else is out there? Adrian Peterson. He's probably not in shape anymore. Jokingly, I brought up Christine Michael. I noticed you didn't respond to that when I texted.
We could pick off Melvin Gordon off of the practice squad of whoever he signed with. I can't remember who that is. I don't know if he was activated. Something like that. Anyway, hopefully those guys get back and get situated. Ken Walker, I would imagine, hopefully is something that's not too serious. It looked like he was walking fine, putting pressure on his ankle, all that kind of stuff. I would imagine it was precautionary. Let's talk about Geno Smith, Keith, and the receivers in this game. So Geno finished 28-39, 3 touchdowns. He did have the interception that was ruled an interception. It wasn't his fault, and it wasn't an interception in my book, where Bobby Wagner kind of took the ball out of Jones's arms on his reception.
That should have
been. His knee was down. He had control of the ball, in my opinion.
I would agree with that, but I do think it was close enough. And since it was ruled Rams ball on the field, they just left it.
Shouldn't have been ruled Rams ball on the field. That's the problem.
Yeah. But how does that get ruled an interception and not a fumble? Because if the only way that's an interception is if you rule.
Ball never came out of the ground and touched the ground.
You're right. It never touched the ground, but it was still in the possession of someone other than the quarterback before Bobby Wagner took it.
Yeah.
So how is it an interception?
And down by contact.
Yeah. Well, they're ignoring that part and just
yes,
saying
they ignored that part.
It was but even then it was in another player's possession and then taken away by the defender. It should have been a fumble.
Yes.
But whatever. I mean, we're also talking about a guy who isn't even on the roster. He's a practice squad guy called up to be special teams and suddenly being thrown up there as the lead, ball carrier for the third quarter.
Well, I mean, he didn't carry the ball very effectively. I mean, he had a couple of runs that were actually pretty decent, picked up 2 first downs with those runs, but I thought he did okay.
7 attempts for 14 yards.
Yeah, 7 attempts for 14 yards. But when you take a look at the receptions, he's got 2 receptions for 18 yards as well. And those were very helpful, I thought. Other than that weird interception fumble thing. But let's talk about Geno Smith. I want to get back to this. This is the opportunity that I think that we've been waiting for, Keith. I thought he played steady throughout the entire game, for the most part, against a stingy Rams defense at times, that were kind of forcing Seattle to do things they didn't want to do. But he had the ball.
Geno played well. You look at, I don't know. I don't do the Twitter thing anymore, but my guess is that Seahawks Twitter is melting down about this and blaming Geno for a lot of it. But I thought he played well. He had a lot of pressure in his face.
I thought he stepped up really well, was patient as much as he could be.
Cross didn't have a great game as his left tackle. His interior line failed him time and time again. There wasn't much running game to speak of after Walker got hurt. And yet he still was really efficient. 28 of 39, 367 yards, 3 touchdowns, the 1 interception that wasn't really an interception, quarterback rating of 116.
Yeah. I mean, you really can't ask any more for a quarterback on the road in December against, a division rival. Now, granted, they're struggling. They're 3-9 now, the Rams. But nonetheless, they came ready to play. Bobby Wagner was excited to play against his old team. You mentioned Jalen Ramsey. That defensive backfield was fired up. But nonetheless, Lockett ended the game with 9 receptions, 128 yards and a touchdown. DK Metcalf, 8 receptions, 127 yards and a touchdown. Noah Fant had 4 receptions, 42 yards. I thought those were very effective. Had that touchdown I mentioned earlier when Geno Smith was really patient in the pocket, waited till the last minute. Noah Fant crossed in the back of the end zone, and he was sitting there to kind of backpedal his way out of the corner. And I just think that was one of the plays of the game right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that it was, and that was one of the things that when a quarterback is patient, it gives the receivers longer to get open. It also gives the pass rushers time to get home. And so it's a double-edged sword when he's holding onto the ball. Is the pass blocking good enough to keep him out of trouble and give him time to get the ball downfield?
Well, that wasn't a situation either where he was scrambling around or anything. He waited. He stepped up patiently into the side to avoid pressure, and that was just enough. I mean, he held the ball. It was probably a total of about 4 seconds. It wasn't a huge amount of time, but it was enough where he was still in the pocket. And I thought they did a really good job blocking.
You want to see players be patient, but at the same time, you don't want to see them hold onto the ball unnecessarily long. Yeah. And Geno has a tendency to skirt that line and just be on both, on one side or the other, just really close to it.
Yeah.
I felt in this game, he did a better job of being patient, but not too patient, getting the ball out of his hand when he needed to. He only took a couple sacks.
Yes.
And those were,
I thought those were on the line.
Yeah. One of the, Cross didn't have, this was probably Cross's weakest game of the year so far. He just got pushed back right into Gino's lap and gave up that one. And then
he looked like he was off balance. Like he's sometimes just isn't ready.
Yeah.
And when the ball is snapped and he just gets his outside, his first step out is late. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that gets him in trouble a little bit. Can we go on to the other side of the ball really quick and talk about?
Do we have to? Because I
want to talk about Nuwasu though, because he had a great game. He had a great game. I want to give him credit. He had 2 sacks. He made some plays behind the line of scrimmage. He allowed other players to play well. I just was really impressed with his game and the ability to be consistent. Like him and Tariq Woolen, I think, are literally the most consistent players this year on the Seahawks defense. I would say like Al Woods, but I saw Al Woods have problems today getting blocked out of position.
Yeah, Al Woods was really good at the kind of the year. Yeah. His play has fallen
kind of wearing down a little bit, and Bruce Irvin looked bad.
34. Yeah,
I love Bruce Irvin. He's a hyper player. I really like him, but he was out of position quite a bit. He got sucked inside on several different plays where the runner chose to take the outside route or the quarterback on a bootleg, took off on in the other direction, and he was nowhere to be found. And that he's got to be able to stay disciplined over there. I don't know what's going on with the defense again. I really don't. And we mentioned the 2-gap thing. I think this is an issue. This was a diminished team, a very poor offensive line team. And I don't understand the struggles that we were having today. We scouted this team. We watched film all week. We prepared, and you go in, and the game starts. The whistle blows, and these guys are just not ready to play and defend. And I think it's scheme stuff because some of these guys are quality players. They are.
Well, I look at this, and we don't know what the plan was. We don't know, what the thought process was. It might have been, hey, this team has so many people out that we should be able to beat them. Let's go ahead and use this as defensively, use it kind of as a practice. And let's try some of these things that we want to be able to do that we're not able to do yet, but we just need more reps. And there was a bunch of that.
When the game was on the line, Keith, in the fourth quarter, the Seahawks let the Rams drive 75 yards in 3 minutes and 30 seconds to score a touchdown and put the Rams up 23-20 with no guarantees that we would be able to score and win the game. Yeah. And that's frustrating to allow a team so diminished and then you look at, to do that to you.
After the Seahawks retook the lead there in the fourth and they went back to, the Rams had that last, then suddenly the Seahawks were attacking and it looked like they were playing it like a month ago. And it was like they waited until that point in the game to pin their ears back and actually, rush the passer properly. It was a weird game for Seattle's defense. I don't understand what happened. It is frustrating.
Yeah, I don't understand the lack of aggression. This team is built for aggression. Like our safeties are aggressive. Nuwasu's aggressive. You got Bruce Irvin wants to pin his ears back a little bit. You've got a couple of defensive tackles in Puna Ford. And Miles Adams wasn't in there today, but you've got Shelby Harris, who love to get forward, penetrate gaps, create problems and disruptions and so forth. Allow your playmakers behind you to make plays. We're not doing that anymore. And it's really frustrating to play so vanilla at this point in the season when you should really be gearing up to, and like you said, this game is kind of like a practice game. You should be trying some things. I don't think that you should be trying to play vanilla and play safe at this point in the season. Seattle's only 7-5. We're not a world beater team. This team doesn't look like it has Super Bowl aspirations this year. So go ahead and get players playing and check your scheme for next year and check, what you've got and see if you can get it to work together really effectively. And maybe it is a talent deficit. Maybe you and I are just kind of seeing this through some lenses that, we think these guys should be playing better because but they
Well,
just don't have it.
Part of it is that they've played better. They've been better. The scheme has matched the personnel better than it did in this game, defensively. And there's a lot to be frustrated in. I will say, you go through and you look at, the Seahawks were 5 of 10 on third down. That's a trend that I like, for them to get back to that. They also, the Rams were 4 of 12. 33%. That is something that they have not done the last 2 weeks on either the offense or the defensive side. It's good to see them, get out there and fix some of these efficiency problems that they've been having.
And conversely, now I'm going to stop bitching, because we won this game. We're 7-5. We're at least, tied for first place in the NFC West. Denver lost again. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But you know what? We held these guys at 319 total yards on offense. They had 148 yards in passing. They beat us on the ground, though, 171 yards on the ground. Inexcusable. That's 3 weeks in a row that we've allowed opponents to go over 170 yards against us. But we held them to 5.1 yards per play. On the other side, we had 6.7 yards per play. We had 25 first downs. We held them to 20. You mentioned the third down efficiency for Seattle. We held them to 4 of 12 on those opportunities as well. And then time of possession was essentially even, 30 minutes and 53 seconds for Seattle. So all in all, I'm going to take the win. I'm going to take some experience. I'm a little concerned now about our running back room out of this game. And that Geno played a great game. It's something to build on. That confidence now is going to be there for him, especially in the fourth quarter. This team's going to be confident in him. I think they needed that. So that's a key piece down the stretch. We've got to be able to run the ball. We can't run 90 yards. We had 90 yards rushing in this game. We can't do that and be successful long term. This was the Rams. They were diminished. We ran 90 yards, but Geno passed 360 yards in this game. That can't happen every game for the Seahawks to be successful. So how do we solve that, Keith? How do we get back our running game, especially if maybe Walker misses a game or two?
I don't know, because there's a talent drop-off from Ken Walker to everybody else. And the offensive line has to make that up, and they haven't shown in the last month that they can, because outside of Lucas, the rest of the offensive line hasn't looked good. And even Lucas struggled a week ago, but they haven't looked good run blocking specifically. And that's a problem. This is a team that needs to get some run blocking going. And I know you and I keep bringing the same thing up. And at this point, it's clear the coaches don't agree with us, but Jake Curran, being able to get him in at right guard, I think would fix a lot of the running game problems, because his ability to take a defensive tackle and push them 5 yards downfield is something that this team doesn't have right now. And they'd be able to get the running game going better if they had a Mauler in their right guard. And right now they don't.
Actually surprised in this particular game. I didn't think that Geno was going to have to throw the ball as much. I thought going into this game we'd be able to establish the run. I know the Rams have been really effective, but Ashawn Robinson was out, as well as the best player in the NFL out of this game, Aaron Donald. And I thought, man, this would be a great game to get that run game going and just really just kind of wear these guys down. This didn't happen. And part of that was injuries, but part of that it was that the Rams came to defend the run. And so anywho, the Panthers are next. So the Panthers visit the Seahawks in Seattle. And then we've got two of our most difficult games of the season after that. Now I expect Seattle to go and take care of business at home against the Panthers, but the 49ers and on at home and then on the road against the Chiefs are critical games. It'd be really amazing if we could win one of those games, because if you could win one of those games, you've got the Jets and then the Rams visiting again at the end of the year. There's an opportunity to win like 4 out of the next 6, or 5 out of the next 6, but you've got to win one of those games against the 49ers or the Chiefs. I think the 49ers are vulnerable. What did you talk to me about with Garoppolo's injury?
Yeah, I saw that Garoppolo got carted off the field, and that fairly quickly the team said he wouldn't return. But then they went on and had a pretty dominant win anyway. So I'm not sure that looking at, I just don't know. I mean, they were playing the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a good team. They're a playoff team. And it was 33-17. And so if Garoppolo is out, I think that hurts their chances quite a bit. But they're still a quality team. I mean, Garoppolo only threw 4 passes. 37 passes were thrown by some guy named Purdy. Wow. Who threw 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, quarterback rating of 88.8. Yeah, I mean, this is a team that's got a lot of talent up and down the roster. And they do. If Garoppolo's not out there, it hurts their chances. But this team wasn't winning because of Garoppolo. They were winning with Garoppolo. They weren't winning in spite of him either. He was playing pretty well, but they weren't winning because of him. Now they have to figure out if they can win in spite of this kid Purdy, and see what's going on, them. Because if they don't have Garoppolo, I don't see this team making a run in the playoffs. No matter how good their roster looks, you just have to have a quarterback. Mm-hmm. And so they're still a game up on Seattle, but they become vulnerable. This becomes a team that is not going to win out, the way that everyone was talking like they would. And Seattle could get a win. It's an important game. So Seattle could actually upset them there and get themselves back into first place and have a shot at a home playoff game. But they got to take care of business every other week too. Yeah. That's really what it comes down to.
So the Panthers, last week beat the Broncos, and then they had their bye. Mm-hmm. And so they're facing the Seahawks this week. But they've beaten the Falcons. The Ravens beat them. The Bengals have beat them. The Falcons beat them earlier in the year. They did beat the Buccaneers. The Rams beat them earlier in October 16th. So they're just kind of an up and down team. I don't expect, though, that the Seahawks are going to have an issue handling this team. Sam Darnold's coming in. We'll talk about it later in the week when we preview the game. And if it's not Sam Darnold, it's the other guy. What's his name?
Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield. That's right. Yeah. Baker Mayfield. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of not good when it comes to that particular team. They were hoping to turn things around, and with the Baker Mayfield thing, that didn't happen, and now they're in rebuild mode. Mm-hmm. The fact that they've gone back to Sam Darnold tells you a lot about where they feel they are. It's a team they've got to. The Seahawks have got to beat.
So the Seahawks improved to 7-5. And it helps our playoff chances. Conversely, Denver lost again, Keith. They have 9 losses on the season, 3-9. Love to see it. The struggle continues. Their offense is horrible. I think Nathaniel Hackett is a one and done quote coach. I think he's going to be gone next year.
He's still employed.
He probably won't be by the end. But that really helps solidify the Broncos choice in the first round that is now owned by the Seattle Seahawks as a top 5 pick overall. So that'll be very interesting, as well as an early second. Fun stuff. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No. Let's call it a show. Good win, Seattle. Glad you did it. It was ugly, but it was a win, and every win should be celebrated. So, now go get ready for the next one.
Yeah, for sure. They're not all going to be easy. The more I thought about this game, I was thinking early in the game, I was thinking that these things are just hard. It's just hard to win in the NFL every week. no matter what the roster is, it's a different iteration of that team, and you've got to be ready to play. And certain players come out and make plays for the other team. I thought their quarterback did an admirable job. He's a guy that's been kicking around for a little bit as a backup, and came in, tried to do the job. And Seattle just was a better team, and I think that it finally showed up, both on the last stand defensively, and then with Geno Smith down the stretch. I'm glad he got that. Last 2-minute drive win to put him over that little hurdle. I think I heard it on the broadcast that was the first time since 2016 that he'd led a game-winning drive. So that's good to see. And then, you don't have to talk about it anymore.
I know. I'm ecstatic about that, because it had been a thing that you kind of were starting to wonder, because he had opportunities.
It wasn't like it was a sketchy drive either, Keith. It was just a real nice, solid drive down the field. Used the clock. I thought Tyler Lockett came up big a couple plays, and then that last throw was amazing to make up there. So, okay, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. You can find the show at Hawks Playbook on Twitter. SeahawksPlaybook.com is the website. Find us on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and share it. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.